You may have seen my videos about how our family buys groceries that we can't produce here on our farm in bulk, and about Azure Standard, our favorite source for healthy bulk ingredients. However, I realized that Azure Standard doesn't work for everybody. First of all, there may not be a drop location near you. And second of all, you may not have the flexibility to just drop everything and go meet the truck to get your groceries, especially over the last few years, as their schedule has kind of been all over the place. Even we are only purchasing from Azure Standard once or twice each year, since their schedule has changed and now they're delivering here on Sundays, which doesn't work for us, and our drop location is an hour and a half away. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you some other places that we source bulk ingredients and supplies in hopes that these Azure Standard alternatives will help you source healthy bulk ingredients and lower your grocery bill no matter where you live and whether or not Azure is an option for you. First though, I'm going to be sharing with you our top 10 favorite things we still buy from Azure Standard and 5 things we no longer buy from them and why. Honestly, when I started writing down all that I wanted to say today, I originally thought I'd just list my top 5 favorites. But the fact is that despite the downfalls of Azure Standard, we still really love shopping with them. In fact, many of the things I get from them, I haven't found a reasonable alternative for. Number 1 is both old-fashioned and quick oats. They are organically grown, come in 50-pound bags, and the price cannot be beat. I even compared it to Walmart's Great Value brand, not organic, and Azure's still came in significantly cheaper. We go through a lot of oats in this house, about 250 pounds each year, so this is a big deal for our grocery budget. Now, there are probably online sources that could compete at the per pound rate, but whenever I've found these, the cost of shipping 250 pounds of oats has been through the roof. I will talk about a few Azure Standard alternatives for things like oats and flour in a bit, so if you're curious, hang tight for those. Okay, number 2 is kamut flour, which is the ancient grain wheat flour that we love to use. Now, I will say that we do prefer the white all-purpose kamut from the Food Nanny, but it is definitely more expensive, especially when you factor in shipping, and it's also usually out of stock. Azure's is also technically healthier because it is unifine, which means that it is fine like all-purpose flour, but it contains the wheat bran and germ. So the downfall is that it definitely acts more like a whole wheat flour than an all-purpose. We also buy kamut berries so that we can mill our own whole wheat flour. Number 3 is chocolate chips. We buy several different types, but I will say that if you don't care about your chocolate being organic, Nestle is way cheaper. If you do care and you'd like the convenience of buying in bulk instead of a bunch of little bags, Azure's are great. The types of chocolate chips that really stand out though are their allergen-free chocolate chips and their allergen-free white chocolate chips. We have gone through periods in our life when dairy and soy allergies were something that we had to work around, and having a source of safe chocolate chips was huge. I still buy some of the allergen-friendly chocolate chips for making allergen-friendly desserts, such as the egg-free, gluten-free, grain-free, dairy-free chocolate chip cookies that our family loves. Even though none of us are currently on any major food restrictions, I still make these cookies. So I will leave the recipe for these amazing cookies in the description below. Number 4 is peanut butter. They carry my absolute favorite brand of organic peanut butter from CB's Nuts. They call it creamunchy, I believe, because it is the perfect texture, at least in my opinion, where it isn't perfectly smooth, but they aren't full of full nuts either. A happy medium for both smooth and crunchy peanut butter fans. The best part though is that it has very little oil separation, even though the only ingredient is fresh roasted, USA grown, USDA certified organic peanuts. The second best part is that they come in these 1-gallon containers, so we buy 4 gallons to last us the year. Number 5 is oxygen-powered bleach powder. This is a main ingredient in our homemade laundry detergent, and I also use it as a booster for really soiled clothing. It is basically a more natural and safer alternative to OxiClean. I like to buy the big box for the savings and then separate it out into these smaller containers. Number 6 is Southern style hash browns. We have been buying this for years. Yes, we could make our own, but for the price, this is such a nice staple to have in our freezer, ready to add to our breakfast. Number 7 is vanilla. Azure's organic vanilla is such an amazing price. So just for comparison, if you were to buy an ounce bottle from your local Walmart, Great Value brand and not organic, you'd pay $3.94 an ounce. I did see online that they do offer a 4-ounce bottle, and that is $2.83 an ounce. Again, Great Value brand and not organic. Azure's, when I buy it in a 32-ounce bottle, is only $1.21 per fluid ounce. Also, I've shown here before how you can make your own vanilla extract, but frankly, Azure's pre-made stuff is cheaper than sourcing high-quality vanilla beans and making your own. This is high-quality, organic vanilla, and I use it in all of my baking and skincare recipes. Number 8 is fine ground almond flour. If you buy it in the 20-pound bag, it is about the same cost for organic as Walmart's cheap non-organic almond flour. And that's not always a deal breaker for me, but for almonds, it definitely is. This is a major ingredient in those cookies I was just talking about, so we go through a lot. Number 9 is dried fruit and nuts. Okay, so this is 2 things and they're pretty broad categories, but I couldn't say one without the other. In both cases, the price cannot be beat and the quality is amazing too. We buy large quantities of several different types of dried fruit and nuts, but our favorites are organic almonds and dried bananas. Number 10 is not a food item or an ingredient, but I get asked about these 1-gallon and half-gallon jars all the time, and they are from Azure. They are a great price and so versatile. I have a ton of them and I use them for everything from storing dried fruit and nuts to storing my sourdough starter. Just a heads up though that the lids are sold separately, so don't forget to add those to your order too. Okay, now let's go over a few things that we no longer buy from Azure. First up is their granulated sugar. I have bought the 50-pound bags of it for a few years, and this year I went to open my bag and realized that it was extremely coarse. Now, this sugar does not go through the refining process that traditional store-bought sugar does, and it's always been a little more coarse, which is understandable, but this was extreme to the point where it changes the texture of things. In a way, it feels like a big waste because we hesitate to even use it. I have found other brands that are also less refined and organic, so I will probably stick to those from now on. The next thing I won't buy again from Azure is frozen bananas. Now, there was nothing wrong with them per se, but frozen bananas thawed incredibly quick, so by the time we got them home, they were mush. I popped them in the freezer when we got home, but it was too late, and what I ended up with was one massive chunk of frozen banana. I made use of it by chipping away at the mass over time, but it was a pain and I won't risk that happening again. If you live close to your drop point, this might not be a concern. The third thing I will probably no longer buy from Azure is their produce. Frankly, most of it is just too expensive. Sometimes in-season produce for canning will be a good price for organic, but I've received too many boxes of produce that were past their prime. The exception to this may be things like Meyer lemons that are hard to find locally, but aside from that, I've found other sources that I prefer, which I will discuss in just a minute. All right, now let's chat about some Azure Standard alternatives in case you're wanting to buy healthy food and supplies in bulk and Azure just isn't an option. First of all, I'm not going to talk much about sourcing locally from farmers because I think that's a given. I think if you or I can source things like beef or milk from someone down the road, we're going to do that. So this discussion is really more about things that are not grown and sold locally. If finding local sources for things like beef has been difficult for you though, a great resource is localharvest.org, and I'll leave that in the description. The first alternative I've been loving and may look into more as Azure becomes less convenient is my local country store. It is run by a Mennonite family, and I've heard that there are many of these Mennonite and Amish stores around the US that operate in the same way. But basically, they buy in bulk to sell in their stores, and there's often the opportunity to buy in bulk from them for a great price. Our local store has bulk baking ingredients as well as produce by the box in the summer months. So this is where I've been getting things like boxes of pears and peaches for canning. I've also found some random things like bulk canning lids for a great price at the store. I also love looking around and finding really neat things that you won't find in a regular grocery store, like these dish rags, and they are my absolute favorite. We also on this day just picked up some fun snacks for the kids, and these were a great price as well. It's also really nice to support a local family who they all work together in this business, and I just feel way better about that than supporting my local Walmart. The second alternative that we don't have here, but you may very well have in your location, is a grocery store that will allow you to buy in bulk. So just to be clear, because people always tell me in the comments that I should be supporting my local grocery store, we don't have a locally owned grocery store aside from the little Mennonite store I mentioned, or the small food co-op in town that I could never afford to feed my family from. I do not feel bad about not supporting Walmart, which is our only option basically. So if you do have a store that you feel comfortable supporting and they're willing to sell to you in bulk, that may be your best option. A third alternative is an online source that will ship things straight to you. I personally get things like paper towels and toilet paper from cleanitsupply.com. There are also farms now that will ship high quality meat straight from the farm to you. So you might want to check out farms like Ballerina Farm if you don't have a local source for that as well. I have also ordered nuts and seeds and miscellaneous groceries from nuts.com and vitacost.com and had great experience with both of those companies. Another option I have heard a lot about, but have not personally ordered from, is Thrive Market. I believe how it works is that you pay to be a member and then can take advantage of their competitive pricing on healthy or natural food items, and the groceries are sent straight to your door. Finally, there are many food buying co-ops, buying groups, and smaller companies that operate similar to Azure but on a smaller scale. And if you're in Canada and wish you had an Azure Standard drop, check out Organic Matters. I believe it's omfoods.com. I'll leave that below. These groups and small companies can be hard to find though, and often fill up via word of mouth, so they don't often advertise themselves. So here is where you can help. In the comments below, if you know of a buying club, food co-op, or other source of healthy bulk food, please let us know. Include where it's located, if they ship or if it's just for locals, what they sell, and how to contact them. I really want this comment section to be an amazing resource for those looking for Azure Standard alternatives. And then if I get enough information down in the comments, I will transfer that over to my blog so that it's easier to read through and find things. All right, friends, that's all I have for you today. I hope that you can get out and enjoy the sunshine if it's shining there like it is here today. And I will see you here next week.